For roughly 250 years, Japan was at peace. No civil wars, no foreign invasions. A country full of swords and almost nothing to cut. A samurai born in 1650 could live a long life, die in his bed, and never once draw his blade against another man. And it was in exactly those years, the quiet ones, that the samurai began writing books about how to die. Not manuals of tactics, not treatises on fortification. Books about resolve and duty and the correct way to meet your own end. The most famous of them opens with a line that has echoed for 3 centuries. The way of the warrior is found in death. So here's the puzzle. Why would a class of professional fighters wait until the fighting stopped to explain what fighting meant? That question is where Bushido actually begins. Most of us already think we know the answer. The image arrives fully formed, usually from a screen. A silent man in dark armor. Absolute loyalty to his lord. A code of honor so rigid that failure leaves only one option. The short blade, the white robe, the ritual death in a quiet garden. It is a powerful picture. Parts of it are true, but it is a picture that was assembled, polished, and sold, and much of the assembling happened long after the last samurai had put away his swords. So set it aside for an hour. This episode asks a narrower question. Not what Bushido feels like, but what it actually said. Who wrote it down? When? Why? And what they were arguing about while they wrote. The answer is stranger and more human than the legend. Start where the warriors start. In the 12th century, power in Japan shifts away from the perfumed court at Kyoto and toward provincial fighting men, mounted archers who hold land and hold it by force. With the founding of the Kamakura shogunate at the end of that century, Japan has, for the first time, a government run by warriors. They have a phrase for their way of life. Kyuba no Michi, the way of the bow and horse. But it is not a code in any modern sense. There is no book. There are no commandments. It is a bundle of practical expectations passed hand to hand. Ride well. Shoot straight. Hold your ground. Do not shame your house, or the men who fought beside your father. Custom, not scripture. And custom bends. It been a great deal. Look at the Warring States period, the century of near-continuous civil war that ends around 1600. This is the era we most associate with samurai honor. It is also an era in which betrayal is ordinary administrative practice. Retainers overthrow their lords. Whole clans change sides between one season and the next. There is even a word for the pattern, Gekakujo, the low overturning the high. At Sekigahara in 1600, the battle that decides who will rule Japan, the outcome turns in part on a commander named Kobayakawa Hideaki, who waits on a hillside through the morning and then charges the army he had promised to fight for. The men we remember for unbreakable loyalty lived in a world where loyalty was, very often, a calculation. Not because they were cynics, because they wanted their families to survive. Then, quite suddenly, the wars end. The Tokugawa family takes the shogunate in 1603 and builds a system designed above all to prevent another century of blood. Domains are watched. Castles are limited. The great lords are required to spend alternate years in the capital and to leave their families behind when they go home. It works. The peace holds for 2.5 centuries, which leaves the warrior class with a problem nobody planned for. There is nothing to fight. The samurai remain the ruling estate. They keep their stipends, their 2 swords, their rank. But their daily work becomes paperwork. Tax accounts, water rights, canal repairs, disputes over boundary stones. A hereditary army of administrators. A soldier who never soldiers has to ask what he is for. Bushido, as literature, is the answer to that question. Around 1709, in the Nabeshima domain on the island of Kyushu, a retired retainer begins to talk. His name is Yamamoto Tsunetomo. He had served the lord of the domain since boyhood, mostly as an attendant and a clerk. When that lord died, Tsunetomo wanted to follow him in death, as older custom allowed, but the practice had been banned. So he shaved his head, became a monk, and withdrew to a hermitage in the hills. There, over some 7 years, a younger samurai named Toshiro Tsurumoto sits with him and writes down what he says. The result is called Hagakure, hidden by leaves. It contains the most quoted sentence in the history of the samurai. The way of the warrior is found in death. And here is the detail that changes everything. Yamamoto Tsunetomo had never fought in a battle. Not one. Read the passage in full, and it turns out not to be a call for dying. Tsunetomo's argument is about hesitation. When you are caught between two courses, he says, choose the one that leads more directly to death. Because the moment you accept that you are already dead, you stop calculating and you become free to act. Prepare your mind each morning, then live the day cleanly. It is a discipline of resolve, aimed squarely at men who would almost certainly die of old age. And the book is far less solemn than its reputation. Between the meditations on death sit instructions on how to yawn without being noticed, how to look healthy after too much drinking. Keep a little rouge tucked in your sleeve, he advises, in case you wake up pale. This is not a war manual. It is an old man teaching young men how to hold themselves. Meanwhile, the shogunate needed that same class to behave. Its answer was Chinese. Neo-Confucian philosophy, imported and promoted as something close to official orthodoxy, gave the Tokugawa order a moral architecture, a universe of fixed relationships, ruler and subject, father and son, each carrying obligations that ran in both directions. Loyalty, chu. Righteousness, gi. And giri, the weight of what you owe. Samurai boys were now educated in domain schools, reading Confucian classics rather than practicing with the bow. The scholar Yamamoto pushed the logic to its conclusion. If the warrior no longer fights, what justifies his stipend? Only this. He must become the moral example for everyone below him. Cultivated, restrained, upright. The conscience of the country. Notice what has happened. The fighter has been quietly redefined as a gentleman, by scholars, not by soldiers. The other current runs deeper and says less. Zen had been close to the warrior class since the Kamakura period. Plain, austere, impatient with words. What it offered a man who might die at any moment was not comfort. It was attention. Mushin, no mind. The trained state in which the self stops commenting on itself. The swordsman who thinks about his sword has already lost. The mind must keep moving, stopping nowhere, like water. The monk Takuan Soho set this out in writing for one of the great sword masters of his age, in a letter that reads less like religion than like coaching. If you have walked a Zen garden, as we did earlier in this series, you have already met the same instinct in gravel and stone. Strip away the excess. Sit with what remains, death included. Which brings us to the part everyone knows. Seppuku, cutting the belly, began on the battlefield as a way for a defeated warrior to die by his own hand rather than an enemy's. Under the Tokugawa, it became something else. A formal legal sentence. And a privilege. A commoner condemned to death was executed. A samurai was permitted to end his own life, and in doing so often preserved his family's name and its stipend. By then the act was choreographed. The white robes, the mat, the folded paper, the appointed second standing behind with a drawn sword to end the pain quickly. In many later cases the blade on the tray was replaced by a folded fan. The gesture made, the second striking at the touch. And it was rarer than the films suggest. A dreadful ceremony, not a daily habit. Now the case that tested all of it. In 1701, a provincial lord named Asano draws his sword inside Edo Castle and wounds a senior official of the shogunate. Drawing a blade in the shogun's residence is unforgivable. Asano is ordered to commit seppuku the same day. His domain is dissolved. His retainers become Ronin, masterless. Nearly 2 years later, on a snowbound night in the winter of 1702 by the old calendar, 47 of them storm the official's mansion, kill him, and then surrender and wait. And the finest minds in the country cannot agree on what they have done. Some scholars call it the purest loyalty in living memory. Others call it a private vendetta by men who defied the law. The Confucian scholar Ojiu Sorai proposes a compromise: honor them as samurai and still require them to die. They are ordered to commit seppuku. The argument never really ends. 2 centuries on, the samurai are gone. The class is abolished in the 1870s. Stipends are converted and then extinguished, swords come off, and within a single generation the warrior is a memory rather than a caste. And then, in 1900, a book appears in Philadelphia, Bushido, The Soul of Japan. Its author is a Japanese agricultural economist named Nitobe Inazo, educated in America and Germany, married to an American, and a convert to Quaker Christianity. He wrote it in English. He wrote it for Westerners. By his own account, a Belgian scholar had once asked him how Japanese children learn right from wrong without religious instruction in school, and he had found himself unable to answer. His answer, years later, was Bushido. The book that gave the modern world the word was written in a foreign language, abroad, for foreigners. Nitobe was not a historian and never claimed to be. He explains Japan by reaching constantly for Europe. Bushido as chivalry, the samurai as knight. He quotes Shakespeare and the Bible more comfortably than he quotes samurai sources. Hagakure, still an obscure regional manuscript, barely enters the picture at all. What he produced was a single, coherent, gentle ethical system. Honesty, courage, benevolence, self-control, and offered it as the moral inheritance of an entire nation. But the samurai were never an entire nation. Depending on how you count, they were somewhere in the range of 5 to 7% of the population. Farmers, merchants, and artisans made up the rest, and they lived by other rules entirely. A code belonging to a small minority had been recast as the soul of everyone, and an ideal that portable can be picked up by anyone. In the 1930s and 40s, Imperial Japan took the vocabulary of the warrior and issued it to conscripts. Loyalty became loyalty to the state. The samurai's private readiness to die was rewritten as an expectation placed on ordinary soldiers, most of them from farming families that had never owned a sword. A field code distributed to the army in 1941 instructed them not to live to suffer the shame of being taken prisoner. Surrender was made unthinkable. In the last year of the war, young pilots were sent out with fuel enough to reach a target and not to return. Words written by an old monk in a hermitage about clarity of mind had been converted into an instrument of state policy. This part of the story should be said plainly and without any music behind it. After 1945, the word might reasonably have died with the empire. It did not. In 1967, the novelist Mishima Yukio published a book-length appreciation of Hagakure, describing it as the book he had returned to all his life. 3 years later, he staged an attempted coup and died by his own hand. The gesture was widely read, then and since, as an anachronism. Elsewhere, the transformation was quieter and stranger. Post-war company men were called corporate warriors, lifelong loyalty to the firm, self-sacrifice for the group, endurance as a virtue. Japan's national football team plays under the name Samurai Blue. And in bookshops from Tokyo to Toronto, the way of the warrior is repackaged as advice. Focus, discipline, resilience. 7 principles on a poster. The code keeps finding new employers. So strip away the empire, the merchandise, and the films. What is actually left? Something real and smaller than the legend. An aesthetic of restraint. The conviction that composure under pressure is worth more than force, and that the man who does not need to display his strength is the stronger one. A grammar of obligation. Giri, the debt you owe to other people and to your own name, which does not dissolve simply because it has become inconvenient. And a peculiar clarity. Not a love of death, but a refusal to pretend it isn't coming. That last one was never uniquely Japanese. Seneca told Romans to rehearse their own dying. Christian monks kept skulls on their writing desks. Serious traditions tend to arrive at the same discovery. You cannot see a life clearly until you accept that it ends. Which returns us to where we started. Why write about dying in an age when almost nobody died in battle? Because these books were never really reports from a battlefield. They were written by men who had inherited a warrior's identity without a warrior's work, and who needed that identity to mean something anyway. Hagakure is soaked in nostalgia. Tsunetomo complains, again and again, that the young samurai of his day are soft, mannered, preoccupied with money and fashion, unrecognizable next to the men of the past. Every generation says this about the next. but he was saying it about a way of life that had already lost its function. Bushido is not a record of how samurai fought. It is a record of what samurai wished they still were, written down at the precise moment it had stopped being possible. Which leads to the thing the legend leaves out. There was never one code, no founding text, no agreed list of virtues, no authority who could settle a dispute. The word Bushido itself turns up only occasionally before the modern era, and different writers used it to mean noticeably different things. Yamamoto Tsunetomo, in Hagakure, actually criticized the 47 Ronin, not for killing, for waiting almost 2 years to do it. A true retainer, he argued, should have struck at once and accepted whatever followed. The most quoted book of the Samurai Code disagreed with the most celebrated act of the Samurai Code. That is not a flaw in the tradition. That is the tradition. Bushido was never a rulebook handed down. It was an argument, carried on across centuries, about what a warrior owes. And it was never settled. So here is the shape of the whole thing. A class of fighters ran out of war and spent the next 250 years writing about what fighting had meant. A Christian economist gave that writing a name and sold it to the world. An empire took the name and used it. And the country rebuilt on the far side of that empire has been quietly negotiating with it ever since. What survives is not a rulebook. It is a question the samurai asked and never fully answered. How should a person live, knowing that they will not always be here? The books that taught the samurai how to die turn out, read closely, to be books about how to live alongside dying. If this is the kind of history you come here for, consider subscribing and staying with us through the rest of the Sacred Japan series. Next time, why Japan repairs a broken tea bowl with gold instead of hiding the crack. Wabi-sabi, the art of imperfection, and the greatest tea master in Japanese history, who was ordered by the most powerful man in the country to cut open his own belly, and did. Until then, notice what you keep and what you throw away because it cracked.